My childhood best friend beat me down, while my wife of 23 years stood by and watched. I disappeared for 2 years, and when I returned, I discovered he'd stolen my business, forged documents in my name, and my wife had a history I never knew about. My youngest daughter's DNA test. Game changer. My name is Nash Carmichael. I'm 52 years old, and 2 years ago, Kyle Fletcher and his crew beat me bloody in my own driveway, while my wife stood there watching with something that looked disturbingly close to satisfaction on her face. I left town that night with a busted jaw, 3 broken ribs, and the kind of humiliation that burns itself into your soul. But I didn't stay broken. I rebuilt myself, piece by piece, and now I'm back. The old Chevy pickup rumbled as I pulled onto Maple Street, my hands gripping the wheel tighter than necessary. Everything looked smaller than I remembered. The houses, the trees, even the problems that once seemed insurmountable. 2 years away will do that. Give you perspective, or maybe just distance. I parked 3 houses down from what used to be my home. The white 2-story looked tired, paint peeling near the gutters, grass a bit too long. Nicole never was one for yard work. That was always my job, along with fixing everything that broke, paying every bill that came due, and apparently being blind to what was happening right under my nose. A bike lay sideways in the driveway. Emma's, probably. My youngest will be 5 now. 5 years old, and I've missed 2 of them. The thought made my chest tighten. Malcolm was 23, somewhere overseas with the Marines, probably still thinking his old man was a coward who ran away. And Madison, 16 now, the age when girls need their fathers most, and I'd been gone. I reached the door handle, then stopped. Through the living room window, I could see movement. Nicole passed by, phone pressed her ear, laughing at something. She looked good, better than she had any right to, considering what she'd done. Hair shorter now, highlighted, new clothes. I wondered who was paying for all that, since I knew damn well the joint account I'd been funding for years was nearly empty when I left. My phone buzzed. A text from my lawyer. Remember, just observe today. Don't engage. We need documentation, not confrontation. Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one who'd been betrayed by his wife and best friend. Yeah, best friend. Kyle and I went back to elementary school, played football together, stood up at each other's weddings. He knew everything about me, every weakness, every pressure point, and he'd used that knowledge like a weapon, turning my wife against me one whispered lie at a time. The front door opened. Emma ran out, all blonde pigtails and pink sneakers, chasing after a neighbor's cat. She'd grown so much. I felt something break inside my chest, something that had nothing to do with those ribs Kyle's buddies fractured. Behind her, Nicole appeared on the porch, arms crossed. She looked tired despite the new hair and clothes. Good. She should be tired. Tired of lying, tired of pretending, tired of whatever game she and Kyle had been playing with my life. I didn't get out of the truck. Not yet. I just watched my youngest daughter play, memorizing every laugh, every movement. This was why I came back. Not for revenge, though that would be sweet. Not even for Nicole, though we had 23 years of history between us. I came back for my kids. For the truth. And maybe, just maybe, to show everyone in this town that Nash Carmichael wasn't the broken man who'd crawled away 2 years ago. The man who came back was someone different entirely. I waited until Nicole and Emma drove off before I started the truck. No sense in making this harder than it needed to be. Today wasn't about confrontation. It was about getting the lay of the land, figuring out who knew what, and most importantly, reconnecting with the business contacts I'd left behind. 20 minutes later, I pulled up to Gerald Hutchinson's estate on the north side of town. The man had more money than sense, collected vintage cars like some guys collected baseball cards, and paid premium rates for quality diesel work. Before everything went sideways, I'd been his go-to guy for engine restoration. Now I was about to find out if that relationship had survived my absence. The gate was open, so I drove straight up to the main garage, a building bigger than most people's houses. Gerald stood outside in his usual uniform, khaki pants, polo shirt, and a cigar that probably cost more than my weekly grocery bill. He looked up as I climbed out of the truck, and his face went through about 5 different expressions before settling on something between surprise and amusement. Nash Carmichael, he said, taking the cigar out of his mouth. Heard you were dead. Heard that rumor myself. Turned out to be exaggerated. He laughed, a deep belly laugh that made his considerable gut shake. I'll bet. Come here, you stubborn son of a gun. He pulled me into a hug that smelled like expensive tobacco and old money. Gerald never cared much for small-town gossip, which was probably why we'd always gotten along. So, he said, stepping back and giving me a once-over. You back for good, or just passing through? Depends on the day you ask me. Fair enough. He gestured toward the garage. Well, since you're here, mind taking a look at the 68 Duramax I picked up last month? Guy who's been working on it says the engine's shot, but I think he's full of it. I followed him inside, where a beautiful blue Chevy sat with its hood up. One look at the engine told me everything I needed to know. Your guy's an idiot, I said, running my hand along the engine block. This beauty just needs a new fuel injection system and some carbon cleaning. Engine's solid as they come. Gerald grinned. That's what I thought. So, you taking jobs again? Might be. Depends on the terms. Terms are simple. You fix my trucks. I pay you stupid amounts of money, and I don't ask questions about why you disappeared for 2 years. I met his eyes. You already know why I disappeared. His expression sobered. Yeah, I heard things. Kyle Fletcher's been running his mouth all over town about how you went crazy, attacked him, had to be subdued for everyone's safety. He spat the word like it tasted bad. Load of garbage, if you ask me. Known Kyle since he was a punk kid stealing hubcaps. He's always been a liar and a cheat. He say anything else? Just that you abandoned your family, left Nicole high and dry, and she had to depend on the kindness of friends to get by. The way he said it made it clear what he thought of that story. Of course, I also heard that Kyle's been driving a new truck, and your shop equipment mysteriously showed up in his garage. My jaw tightened. That's so. That's so. And I heard Nicole's been real cozy with him, though she tells everyone they're just friends. He put air quotes around the last 2 words. Now, I'm not one to spread gossip, Nash, but you should know what people are saying. What else are they saying? Gerald hesitated, chewing on his cigar. They're saying maybe little Emma isn't yours. Saying the timing's suspicious, and she's got Fletcher's eyes. The words hit like a physical blow, but I kept my face neutral. I'd had the same thought myself, lying awake at night, in whatever cheap motel I'd ended up in. Emma would have been conceived right around the time Nicole and Kyle's friendship started heating up. I'm getting a DNA test, I said quietly. Good. You deserve to know the truth. He clapped me on the shoulder. Look, you want this job or not? Because I've got 4 more trucks that need work, and I'd rather give the business to you than that hack who's been overcharging me. I'll take it, but I need to set up shop first. Don't have access to my old equipment. Use my garage. I've got more tools than I know what to do with. We'll work out the details. I nodded, grateful for the lifeline. Appreciate it, Gerald. Don't mention it. Just do me a favor. What's that? Whatever you're planning with Kyle Fletcher, make sure I get a front row seat. 3 days into working at Gerald's garage, I decided it was time to face the dragon. Dorothy Blake, Nicole's mother, had never been my biggest fan, but she'd at least been civil before everything went south. Now I needed to know where she stood, and more importantly, what she knew. Her house sat on Elm Street, a tidy ranch style with flower beds she'd tended for 40 years. I parked on the street and walked up the driveway, noting the new Buick in the garage. Dorothy's old sedan was nowhere in sight. Interesting. I knocked 3 times. Through the front window, I could see movement, Dorothy peering out, her face going pale when she recognized me. For a moment, I thought she might not answer. Then the door opened a narrow gap, security chains still attached. Nash. Her voice was cold as January. What do you want? To talk. 5 minutes, Dorothy. That's all I'm asking. I don't think it's a good idea. Nicole said. I don't care what Nicole said. I care about what really happened, and I think you know more than you're letting on. Her jaw tightened. We stared at each other for a long moment before she sighed and closed the door. I heard the chain slide off, and then she opened it fully. 5 minutes, Dorothy said. And if you raise your voice, you leave. I followed her into the living room. Everything looked the same floral couch, same family photos on the mantel. Except now, there were new pictures. Emma at various ages, Madison with her dance trophy, but notably absent was Malcolm. And notably absent was me. Every photo with me in it had been removed. Nice car in the garage, I said, settling into the armchair. Buick LaCrosse, brand new from the look of it. Those run about $45,000, don't they? Dorothy's face flushed. I don't see how that's her business. It's my business when my mother-in-law suddenly has luxury cars she couldn't afford on her pension. Let me guess, Kyle bought it for you. Kyle has been very generous to this family while you were off doing God knows what. I was off recovering from the beating Kyle and his buddies gave me. The one Nicole watched happen and did nothing to stop. Dorothy's hands trembled slightly, but her voice stayed firm. That's not how Nicole tells it. She says you attacked Kyle in a jealous rage, and he was defending himself. And you believe that. I believe my daughter. I leaned forward. Dorothy, you've known me for 25 years. You really think I'm the kind of man who'd attack someone unprovoked? She looked away. People change. Yeah, they do. Like Nicole changing from a faithful wife to someone who'd let her lover beat her husband unconscious. I pulled out my phone and opened a photo, medical record from the ER that night. Fractured jaw, broken ribs, concussion. This is what self-defense looks like, apparently. Dorothy stared at the photo, her face going white. I didn't know it was that bad. Because Nicole didn't tell you. What else hasn't she told you? She was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. There've been other men. Before Kyle. My stomach dropped. What? I found out by accident, about 6 years ago. Some man called the house looking for her, said things that made it clear they'd been involved. When I confronted Nicole, she broke down, said it was a mistake, that it meant nothing. She begged me not to tell you. And you didn't. You were happy, Dorothy said, and now there were tears in her eyes. You and the kids were happy, and I thought it was over, that she'd learned her lesson. But then there was another one, 3 years ago. A trainer at her gym. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How many, Dorothy? How many times did my wife cheat on me while you said nothing? I don't know. I stopped asking. She wiped her eyes. I told myself it was better for the children, better for everyone if the marriage stayed intact. But after you left, things got worse. Kyle's always around, always spending money on her and the girls. And Emma. What about Emma? Dorothy met my eyes, and I saw fear there. Nicole won't let me be alone with her. Says Emma needs stability, but I think, Nash, I think she's afraid I'll tell you the truth. Which is, that Emma might not be yours. The timing. Nicole was with Kyle around the time she would have conceived. I tried to ask her about it once, and she nearly threw me out of her house. I stood up, my hand shaking with rage. Not at Dorothy, but at the woman who'd built our entire life on lies. I'm getting a DNA test. Already talked to my lawyer about it. Kyle won't like that. Kyle can go to hell. This is about my daughter. If she is my daughter, am I right to know the truth? Dorothy nodded slowly. For what it's worth, Nash, I'm sorry. I should have told you years ago. I was just afraid. Afraid of what? Of Nicole. Of what she'd do if I betrayed her. She looked at me with sad, tired eyes. My daughter isn't who I thought she was. And I don't know if she ever was. Getting a DNA test without Nicole's cooperation wasn't easy, but it wasn't impossible either. My lawyer, Frank Dobson, laid out the options during our meeting at his downtown office. You can petition the court for a paternity test, Frank said, sliding a document across his mahogany desk. He was 63, silver-haired, and had a reputation for being ruthless in family court. Given that you're listed on the birth certificate, and you've been paying child support. Wait, what child support? I haven't paid a dime. Frank's eyebrows rose. According to the county records, you've been paying $1,500 a month since you left. Regular automatic withdrawals from an account in your name. I felt my blood run cold. I closed all my accounts when I left town. Show me. He turned his computer monitor toward me. There it was, a checking account at Riverside Federal Bank, opened 3 months after I left, with my name and social security number. Monthly deposits of $2,000, followed by automatic withdrawals of $1,500 to Nicole Carmichael, labeled child support. That's fraud. I said, my voice tight. I never opened that account. Then someone opened it using your identity. The deposits are coming from Fletcher's Auto Body, Kyle Fletcher's business. Frank leaned back in his chair. He's been funneling money to Nicole through an account in your name, making it look like you've been meeting your obligations while also establishing a paper trail that suggests you have income you're hiding. Why would he do that? Because if Nicole ever decides to take you to court for more support, there's documentation showing you have the means to pay. And if you claim you don't have access to this account, it makes you look like you're hiding assets. Frank tapped the screen. It's clever, in a sociopathic kind of way. I sat back, my mind racing. Kyle had thought of everything. Made himself look like the hero supporting my family, while setting me up for financial ruin. Can we use this against him? Absolutely. Identity theft, bank fraud, potentially money laundering, depending on where those deposits are really coming from. But first, let's deal with the paternity issue. He pulled out another form. I can file for a court-ordered DNA test tomorrow. But here's the thing, Nash, if Emma isn't yours, you have no legal obligation to her. No support, no custody, nothing. I understand. Do you? Because if you've been her father for 5 years, the court might still consider you the presumptive parent regardless of biology. You could be stuck paying support for a child that isn't yours. I thought about Emma's laugh, the way she'd hugged my leg the last time I saw her, calling me daddy with complete trust in her voice. I need to know the truth, Frank. Whatever it costs. All right, I'll file the paperwork today. Expect Nicole to fight it tooth and nail. He was right. 3 days later, I got the call that Nicole had hired a lawyer and was opposing the test. Her argument was that I'd abandoned my family and had no right to harass them now. The judge scheduled a hearing for the following week. Meanwhile, I kept working at Gerald's garage, building up my cash reserves and my reputation. Word spread fast in a small town. Nash Carmichael was back, and he was doing quality work at fair prices. My appointment book filled up quick. On Thursday afternoon, I was under a Dodge Ram when I heard footsteps approaching. I rolled out from under the truck to find Madison standing there, 14 years old, and looking so much like her mother it hurt. "Hi, Dad," she said, her voice uncertain. I stood up slowly, wiping grease off my hands. "Madison, does your mother know you're here?" "No." I told her I was going to study group. She bit her lip. "We need to talk." I gestured to Gerald's office. "Come on." We sat across from each other at the small desk, and I waited. Madison stared at her hands for a long moment before speaking. "Mom's lying about a lot of things," she said quietly. "And I think you deserve to know the truth." Madison sat across from me in Gerald's office, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled out her phone. She was 14, not the 17-year-old I'd mistakenly thought earlier, still a kid caught in an adult nightmare. "I should have told you 2 years ago," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "But Mom said if I told anyone, you'd never come back. She said you'd left because you didn't love us anymore." "That's not true, sweetheart. I left because Kyle and his friends put me in the hospital. I know that now." She unlocked her phone and pulled up a video. "Kyle doesn't know I recorded this. It was the night you left." My hand shook as I took the phone. The video was dark, grainy, shot from what looked like an upstairs window. But the audio was clear enough. Kyle's voice, drunk and boastful. He won't be coming back. Nobody recovers from a beating like that and shows his face again. And then Nicole's voice, cold and calculating. "Good. Now we can finally be together without him in the way." I felt like I'd been shot. Hearing it, seeing the proof that Nicole had wanted me gone, it was worse than the beating itself. "There's more," Madison said. She swiped to another video, this one recorded inside the house. Nicole and Kyle in the kitchen, about 6 months after I left. "Watch." Nicole was crying. "He wants a DNA test on Emma." "What am I supposed to do?" Kyle's response was ice cold. "You tell your lawyer he abandoned his family. You make him look like the bad guy. And if he pushes it, we'll make sure he never sees any of the kids again." I looked up at Madison. "Why are you showing me this now?" "Because I'm tired of the lies. Because Kyle's been." She stopped, swallowing hard. "He's been different lately. Meaner. He yells at Mom when he thinks we can't hear. And last week, I heard him on the phone talking about how Emma better be worth all this trouble." My blood ran cold. What does that mean? I think it means he knows she might not be his either. And if she's not, he's been playing Mom this whole time for nothing. I pulled Madison into a hug, feeling her shake against me. "You did the right thing telling me. I promise I'm going to fix this." "What about Emma?" "Dad, what if she's not yours?" I thought about my youngest daughter, her blonde pigtails and bright smile. Then she's still the little girl who needs protecting. Biology doesn't change that. Madison pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Mom's been different too. She got sick about 8 months ago. She won't tell us what it is, but I've seen the pill bottles. Cancer medication." The second mention of Nicole being sick. First from Dorothy, now from Madison. How bad is it? I don't know. She hides it pretty well, but Kyle uses it against her. I've heard him say things like, "Who else is going to take care of you? And you need me." Madison's voice hardened. He's not helping her because he loves her. He's keeping her dependent. I felt rage building in my chest, the kind of anger that made men do stupid things. But I forced it down. Madison needed me to be smart, not violent. I need you to send me those videos. And anything else you've got. Already done. I sent them to your email before I came here. She stood up. I have to go. If Mom finds out I was here, she'll freak. Madison, wait. I caught her hand. I know I left. I know that hurt you. But I need you to understand. I left to protect myself, so I could come back and protect all of you. I never stopped being your father. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I missed you, Dad. Every single day. I missed you too, baby girl. And I'm not leaving again. Not ever. After she left, I sat in the office for a long time, watching those videos over and over. Nicole and Kyle had conspired to drive me away, to take everything I'd built, to destroy my relationship with my children. And they'd used my absence to poison my kids against me. But Madison had given me a weapon, undeniable proof of their scheme. The question now was how to use it without destroying my daughter in the process. Because if this went to court, Madison would have to testify. She'd have to face her mother and admit she'd been secretly recording them. That kind of betrayal would tear whatever was left of our family apart. But maybe, I thought, staring at the frozen image of Nicole and Kyle on the screen, the family was already broken beyond repair. Maybe the kindest thing I could do was burn it all down and build something new from the ashes. I waited until Tuesday night, when I knew Kyle would be at Eddie's bar, his regular spot, where he held court with his buddies and bragged about his conquests. I'd heard through Gerald that Kyle had been telling anyone who'd listen about how he'd taken care of the Nash-Carmichael problem. Time to show him how wrong he was. Eddie's bar hadn't changed in 2 years. Same neon sign flickering in the window, same sticky floors, same smell of stale beer and bad decisions. I pushed through the door at 8:30, and the place went quiet. Kyle sat at his usual table in the back, surrounded by 3 of his crew. When he saw me, his face went through a series of expressions, shock, anger, then a forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. Well, he said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. Look who finally grew a pair and came back to town. Nash Carmichael, ladies and gentlemen. The man who abandoned his family and ran away like a coward. I walked straight to his table, ignoring the stares from the other patrons. We need to talk. Outside. I don't think so. Anything you want to say to me, you can say right here. Fine. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the bar's Bluetooth speaker. Eddie owed me a favor from way back, and he'd set it up earlier. Let's talk about how you and Nicole planned to get rid of me. I hit play. Madison's recording filled the bar. Kyle's voice saying, he won't be coming back. Nobody recovers from a beating like that and shows his face again, followed by Nicole's cold response about finally being together without me in the way. The color drained from Kyle's face. Around us, people were pulling out their phones, recording. In a town like this video would be all over social media by morning. That's fake, Kyle said, standing up. He doctored that audio. Did I also doctor the bank records showing you've been funneling money into a fake account in my name? Or the receipts showing you sold my shop equipment and pocketed the cash? I turned to address the bar. Kyle Fletcher stole from me, lied about me, and he's been playing Nicole for a fool this whole time. Kyle's face twisted with rage. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? How about we discuss Emma? You know, the daughter you've been pretending might be yours just to keep Nicole under your thumb. He lunged at me, but I was ready. 2 years of rage and training had made me faster, stronger. I sidestepped his swing and landed a solid punch to his gut that doubled him over. His buddies jumped up, but this time I wasn't alone. Gerald had brought 3 of his guys, and they positioned themselves between me and Kyle's crew. This is between me and Kyle, I said clearly. Anyone else wants to jump in, they'll have to go through them first. Kyle straightened up, breathing hard. You think you've won? You think showing up with some videos and tough guys makes you the hero? I don't need to be the hero, Kyle. I just need everyone to know the truth about what kind of man you really are. I leaned in close. And that recording? It's already with my lawyer, the police, and about 50 people online. You're done. I turned and walked out of the bar, leaving Kyle standing there with everyone's eyes on him. It wasn't the ending I'd imagined. No dramatic fight, no movie moment justice. Just a man exposed for what he really was, in front of everyone who'd believe his lies. Sometimes, I thought as I climbed into my truck, the best revenge is just the truth. The DNA results came back on a Thursday. I was under a Ford diesel when Frank called, and I rolled out so fast I nearly hit my head on the undercarriage. She's yours, Frank said without preamble. Emma is biologically your daughter. 99.9% certainty. I sat on the garage floor, phone pressed to my ear, feeling something break open in my chest. Relief, joy, and underneath it all, a burning rage that Nicole had let me doubt it for even a second. There's more, Frank continued. The financial audit came back. Nicole's been hiding accounts we didn't know about. And I found something else, credit card statement from 6 years ago showing hotel rooms and restaurant charges. Names on the receipts include someone named Brian Hodges. My mind went blank. Who? Used to work at the bank where Nicole was a teller. Married guy, 3 kids. According to the records, they had a 6-month affair before it ended. Nicole charged everything to a card in your name that you'd given her for emergencies. 6 years ago, when Malcolm was 17 and Madison was 8. When I was working overtime to save for Madison's braces and Malcolm's college fund. There's another one, Frank said, his voice grim. 3 years ago, personal trainer named Rick Wallace. Same pattern, hotels, dinners, gifts, all on your dime. I closed my eyes, trying to breathe through the realization. Nicole hadn't just cheated once. She'd been doing it for years, and I'd been too busy working to notice. Or maybe I hadn't wanted to notice. How many, Frank? How many men were there? That I can document? 3 before Kyle. But there might be more. I thought about Dorothy's words. I stopped asking. She'd known. She'd known her daughter was a serial cheater, and she'd kept quiet to preserve the illusion of a happy family. What do we do with this information? We use it. In court, it establishes a pattern of behavior. It shows Nicole's been lying and manipulating for years. Combined with the forged signatures and the stolen money, we can push for full custody of Emma and supervised visitation only. What about Madison and Malcolm? They're old enough to choose. Malcolm's 23 and overseas, so he's out of the equation. Madison's 14. The court will listen to her preference, especially given that she's been living in an unstable environment. I stood up, my legs shaky. Set it up. I want a custody hearing as soon as possible. Nash, there's something else you should know. I got a call from Kyle's lawyer this morning. Apparently, that video you played at Eddie's bar went viral. Kyle's losing clients, his reputation's in the toilet, and he's talking about suing you for defamation. Let him try. Every word on that recording was true. That's what I told his lawyer. But be careful. Cornered animals are dangerous. After I hung up, I called Madison. She answered on the second ring. Dad, Emma's mine. The test came back positive. I heard her exhale in relief. I'm glad. I really am. Madison, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Did you know about the other men? The ones before Kyle? Silence stretched between us. Finally, she spoke, her voice small. I knew about the trainer. I saw them together once at the gym. Mom told me it was just a friendship, that I was imagining things. I wanted to believe her. That wasn't your fault, sweetheart. None of this is your fault. Dad, there's something else. Malcolm called me last night from overseas. He's coming home early. His deployment got cut short because of some injury. Nothing serious, he said, but enough to send him back stateside. He'll be here next week. My heart clenched. Malcolm, who thought I was a coward. Malcolm, who probably spent 2 years hating me. Does he know I'm back? Yeah. I told him everything, the videos, the DNA test, all of it. He didn't say much, just that he needed to see for himself what was really going on. How did he sound? Angry. Confused. But Dad, I think he wants to believe you. He just needs proof that you're not the man Mom made you out to be. After we hung up, I sat in the garage, surrounded by the smell of motor oil and metal, thinking about my son coming home. Malcolm had always been the one who believed in truth and justice. It's why he joined the Marines. If I could make him understand what really happened, maybe there was hope for rebuilding what Nicole had destroyed. But first, I needed to prepare for war. Because the custody battle was just beginning, and Nicole wasn't going to go down without a fight. Malcolm came home on a Tuesday, walking into Gerald's garage like he'd never left. 6 feet tall, military fit, with the kind of bearing that came from serving in combat zones. But his eyes, my eyes, Nicole always said, were harder than I remembered. Dad, he said, no emotion, just acknowledgement. Son, I set down my wrench and wiped my hands on a rag. Madison said he got hurt. Shrapnel in the shoulder. Nothing serious. They're sending me home for medical leave and evaluation. He looked around the garage. This where you're working now? Gerald's letting me use his space until I can set up my own shop again. Kyle sold off all my equipment. Malcolm's jaw tightened. Yeah, Madison told me about that. Told me a lot of things. We stood there, the weight of 2 years hanging between us. Finally, Malcolm pulled out his phone and held it up. On the screen was the video from Eddie's bar, the one of Kyle and Nicole planning my departure. Is this real? Malcolm asked. No editing, no manipulation. It's real. Madison recorded it the night I left. And you didn't tell anyone because I was in the hospital with a fractured skull, broken ribs, and no one who'd believe me over Kyle Fletcher. His cousin's a deputy, his uncle's on the county board. I tried to press charges, and they made it disappear. I met his eyes. I left because staying meant either taking another beating or doing something that would land me in prison. I left to protect myself so I could come back with evidence. Malcolm studied me for a long moment. Then he walked over to the workbench and leaned against it. Mom told us you had a breakdown, that you accused her of things that weren't true, got violent, had to be restrained. She cried when she told us. Madison believed her. I believed her. I know. But then I came home on leave 6 months ago, and things didn't add up. Kyle was always around, acting like he owned the place. Mom was different, secretive, defensive, and Madison was scared of something, though she wouldn't say what. He pulled out another phone, an older one, beaten up. This was in Mom's drawer. I found it when I was looking for birth certificates to update my military records. He unlocked it and showed me the screen. Text messages between Nicole and Kyle, dating back 4 years. Explicit messages. Plans to meet up. Discussions about getting rid of me. She kept a burner phone. Malcolm said flatly. For 4 years. She had a secret phone just for talking to Kyle. And probably others before him. I took the phone, scrolling through messages that made my stomach turn. Nicole discussing how to manipulate me, how to hide money, how to make me look unstable if I ever found out the truth. Where did you get this? I took it before I deployed. Told myself I was being paranoid, that Mom couldn't be that person. But I couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. He paused. Then I got your number from Madison and read through everything you sent her. The bank records, the forged signatures, the DNA test results. It all fits. Malcolm, I know this is hard. Hard. He laughed bitterly. Dad, I spent 2 years defending Mom to anyone who'd listen. Told people my father was a deadbeat who abandoned his family. Got into fights over it. And the whole time, she was lying. About everything. She's still your mother. Is she? Because right now, I don't know who she is. He pushed off the workbench. But I know who you are. You're the guy who taught me to change oil when I was 10. Who helped me study for the SATs. Who came to every football game. Even when you were dead on your feet from work. That guy wouldn't abandon his family without a damn good reason. Something in my chest loosened. Thank you, son. Don't thank me yet. I want to hear everything. The whole story, start to finish. And then I want to know what you're planning to do about Kyle and Mom. We sat in Gerald's office for 3 hours while I laid out everything. The affair, the beating, the financial fraud, the custody battle, the other men Nicole had been with over the years. Malcolm listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. When I finished, he sat back and stared at the ceiling. What do you need from me? Honestly, I need you to be there for your sisters. Madison's caught in the middle, and Emma doesn't understand what's happening. They need someone stable. What about Mom? What happens to her when all this comes out? That's up to the courts. But Malcolm, there's something else you should know. Your grandmother told me Nicole's sick. Cancer. She's been getting treatment. His face went pale. How bad? I don't know the details. But Kyle's been using it to control her, making her dependent on him. Malcolm stood abruptly, his hands clenched into fists. That son of a... He stopped, breathing hard. How does someone do that? How does someone manipulate a sick woman like that? The same way he manipulated all of us. By lying, by finding weaknesses, by being exactly who people need him to be until he's got them trapped. Malcolm was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at me with something like respect. You came back to face this. That took guts. I came back for you kids. Everything else is just settling accounts. Then let's settle them. Malcolm said. Tell me what needs to be done. 3 weeks after Malcolm came home, Nicole showed up at Gerald's garage. I heard her car pull up and knew immediately it was her. Same silver sedan she'd been driving for years, now with a dent in the passenger door. I didn't stop working. Just kept my hands on the engine I was rebuilding, waiting. Nash. Her voice was softer than I remembered, worn down by whatever the past few weeks had cost her. Nicole. I still didn't look up. Can we talk? Please. I set down my wrench and finally turned to face her. She looked terrible, thinner than ever, her skin sallow, dark circles under her eyes. The cancer treatment was eating her alive, and, for a moment, I felt something like pity. Then I remembered everything she'd done, and the feeling passed. What do you want? She took a breath, steadying herself against a workbench. I want to make you an offer. A way out of all this mess, without destroying the kids completely. I'm listening. We stay married, she said quickly. On paper only. We live in the same house for appearances. Raise Emma together. You can have full custody rights. Make all the decisions. I won't fight you. But we present a united front to the community, to the kids. No messy divorce. No court battles. No public humiliation. I stared at her, genuinely shocked. You want an open marriage? I want peace, Nash. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of Kyle. Tired of the lies. Tired of everything. She looked at me with something like desperation. You can see whoever you want. I won't interfere with your life. I need stability while I'm going through treatment. And the kids need to see us together, even if it's just pretend. You're serious. Completely. Think about it. No lawyers, no custody battle, no dragging Madison and Emma through court. We just coexist, like roommates who happen to share children. I walked closer, studying her face. And what about Kyle? Kyle's gone. He left town after you played that video. His business collapsed. His reputation's destroyed. I haven't heard from him in 2 weeks. Her voice wavered slightly. Turns out when things get hard, he's not so interested in sticking around. Imagine that, I said dryly. I deserve that. She looked down. I deserve a lot worse than that, actually. Nash, I know I can't fix what I broke. I know you'll never trust me again, never love me again. But I'm asking you to consider this for the kids. Madison needs both her parents. Emma needs stability. And Malcolm. She stopped. Malcolm told me he wants nothing to do with me unless I make this right. This is the only way I can think of to do that. I let the silence stretch between us, watching her squirm. Part of me wanted to say yes, just to see her face when I said no. But another part, the part that was tired of fighting, tired of anger, tired of 2 years of living for revenge, actually considered it. No, I said finally. Her face fell. Nash, please. No, I repeated, more firmly. I'm not going to live a lie for the rest of my life, Nicole. I'm not going to pretend we're something we're not just to make you comfortable. You made your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences. So, you're going to destroy me? Take everything. Leave me with nothing while I'm sick and dying. I'm going to divorce you and fight for custody of Emma. I'm going to make sure every fraudulent charge, every forged signature, every lie is documented and presented to a judge. And then I'm going to rebuild my life without you in it. I stepped closer. But I'm not going to destroy you, Nicole. You did that all by yourself. She started crying then. Real tears. Not the manipulative kind I'd seen her use 1,000 times before. I'm scared, Nash. I'm so scared of being alone. You should have thought about that before you let Kyle Fletcher into our bed. Before you cheated on me with Brian and Rick and God knows who else. Before you stole from me and lied to our children. My voice was cold, final. You're not scared of being alone, Nicole. You're scared of facing who you really are without someone else to blame. She wiped her eyes, some of the old steel returning to her spine. Fine. If that's how you want it, we'll do this the hard way. But don't expect me to go down without a fight. I'd be disappointed if you did. After she left, Malcolm came out from the office where he'd been listening. He walked over and stood beside me, both of us staring at the empty space where her car had been. That took guts, he said, saying no to the easy way out. The easy way usually isn't the right way. She's going to make the custody battle hell. You know that? Yeah, but at least I'll be able to look myself in the mirror when it's over. Malcolm nodded slowly. For what it's worth, Dad, I'm proud of you. Not a lot of men would have done what you did. Coming back, facing everything, refusing to take the coward's path. I learned from the best, I said, thinking of my own father, who taught me that integrity mattered more than comfort. So what now? Now we fight. We win custody of Emma. We make sure Madison's safe. and we start over. Build something better than what we had before. Sounds like a plan, Malcolm said. And Dad, I'm with you. Whatever you need. 4 months later, I stood in the county courthouse listening to Judge Rebecca Hamilton read her decision. Nicole sat across the courtroom with her lawyer, looking smaller somehow, diminished by months of treatment and the weight of her own choices. Based on the evidence presented, Judge Hamilton said, including documented financial fraud, a pattern of infidelity, and testimony from both children regarding the home environment, I'm awarding primary physical custody of Emma Rose Carmichael to her father, Nash Carmichael. Mrs. Carmichael will have supervised visitation every other weekend, pending successful completion of counseling. Nicole's face crumpled, but she didn't protest. She'd learned, finally, that some battles couldn't be won with tears or manipulation. The judge continued. Furthermore, I'm ordering Mrs. Carmichael to repay the $75,000 stolen through forged signatures, plus accumulated credit card debt. Payment plan to be determined by the court. Mr. Carmichael, you're awarded full ownership of the marital home and all business assets. It was over. After 4 months of depositions, testimony, and character witnesses, I'd won. But it didn't feel like victory. It just felt like the end of something that should have died years ago. Outside the courthouse, Madison was waiting with Emma. My youngest daughter ran to me, wrapping her arms around my waist. Are we going home now, Daddy? Yes, sweetheart. We're going home. Madison smiled. A real smile. The first I'd seen from her in months. Malcolm's making dinner. He said he'd try not to burn it this time. We all laughed, the sound surprising and welcome after so much darkness. The house, my house now, legally, felt different when we walked in. Malcolm had been cleaning and organizing, getting rid of the clutter Nicole had accumulated over the years. It felt lighter somehow, full of possibility instead of resentment. That evening, after Emma was asleep and Madison was in her room doing homework, Malcolm and I sat on the back porch with beers. The same porch where I'd spent countless nights worrying about money, about Nicole's distance, about whether I was doing enough for my family. Gerald offered me full ownership of the garage, I said. Wants to retire, move to Florida with his wife. Says if I can scrape together $50,000 for a down payment, he'll finance the rest. Can you do it? With what the judge awarded me, yeah. It'll be tight, but I can make it work. I took a sip of beer. Means starting over from scratch, but at least it's mine this time. No partners, no one to betray me. Sound good, Dad? You deserve it. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Malcolm cleared his throat. I met someone, he said, at the VA hospital where I've been doing physical therapy for my shoulder. Her name's Vanessa. She's a nurse there, 28 years old. We've been talking and... He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. And what? And I really like her. But I wanted to make sure you were okay with me dating someone. After everything with Mom, I didn't want you to think I was being disrespectful or... I cut him off with a laugh. Son, you're 23 years old. You don't need my permission to date. I'm happy for you. Yeah, but after watching what Mom did to you, I wanted to make sure I was doing it right. Vanessa's good people, Dad. Honest, straightforward, no games. The opposite of, he stopped. The opposite of your mother. I finished. I get it. And I'm glad you found someone who treats you right. 2 weeks later, I was working late at the garage, my garage now, with Carmichael Diesel Repair newly painted on the sign, when someone knocked on the office door. I looked up to find a woman standing there, mid-30s, with red hair and an uncertain smile. Sorry to bother you, she said. I'm Vanessa Torres, Malcolm's friend. Right, the nurse. Malcolm's mentioned you. I stood up, wiping grease off my hands. What can I do for you? Actually, I'm here with someone who wanted to meet you. She stepped aside, and another woman appeared, younger, maybe 28 or 29, with dark hair and warm brown eyes. This is my friend Rebecca. She just moved to town, and her car's been making this weird noise. Malcolm said you were the best diesel mechanic around. Rebecca held out her hand, and when I shook it, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Genuine interest, untainted by history or betrayal. Nice to meet you, she said. And I promise, I'm not as high maintenance as my car. I found myself smiling. Let's take a look and see what we're dealing with. As we walked out to her truck, a beaten-up Ford Ranger that had seen better days, Vanessa caught my eye and winked. Subtle as a brick, that one. Malcolm had clearly put her up to this. But as Rebecca explained the issue with her engine, talking about torque and compression like she actually understood them, I realized I didn't mind the setup. For the first time in 2 years, I was looking forward instead of backward. The past was done. Nicole would always be Emma and Madison's mother, and we'd have to navigate that relationship carefully. Kyle was gone. Last I heard, he'd moved 3 states over, trying to outrun his reputation. The house was mine, the business was mine, and most importantly, my kids were mine. So, Rebecca said after I'd identified the problem, simple fix, just a loose belt and a clogged fuel filter. How much is this going to cost me? First-time customer discount, I said. I'll do it for parts only. Call it a welcome to town present. That's generous. Can I at least buy you coffee while you work? There's a shop across the street. I hesitated for just a moment, old fears and old wounds making me cautious. Then I looked at her open, honest expression and decided that maybe, just maybe, it was time to take a chance. Coffee sound good, I said. And just like that, a new chapter began.